Hello and welcome back to The Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
I am pretty good, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I was enjoying our off-air conversation about how much better Star Wars is when you don't watch it. It's so nice to not be watching it. Like when everything you hear just sounds awful and worse, it just makes you glad you haven't got that Disney Plus subscription and you ain't watching any of this crap.
It really does.
But today, I think we're talking about, it's an odd movie. I think it's loved by some, hated by others. It's kind of a...
I mean, the critics at the time thoroughly hated it.
Yeah. And I think, like, maybe rightly so in some instances. But I saw it... I kind of saw it young enough that I thought it was awesome.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And I guess... that's continued into adulthood, although when I watch it now I can certainly see like why people complained in places. But you know, it's good fun, so let's talk about it.
Well, I think I was about 13 when I first saw this.
What?
And in a similar way to...
We're talking about Young Guns, by the way. If you, in case you didn't read the title of the
should have probably said
the video or whatever.
Yeah, it's in the title.
It is in the title.
So in a similar way to like I used to watch westerns with my granddad. Yeah. And in a similar way that I'd watched all the sort of you watch all the horror movies. So in the same way that when I first saw Lost Boys, it was like, oh my god, this movie's for me. Yeah. Like these are younger.
This is a vampire horror movie for kids. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and I think the Young Guns was that sort of I had that feeling with Young Guns as well. It's like, my God, this is a western for me. This is amazing.
Yeah.
This
movie also has Kiefer Sutherland.
Exactly, it's got Kiefer Sutherland as well. What more could you possibly ask for? Incidentally, Kiefer Sutherland is my favorite character in this movie.
Oh, Doc is by far my favorite character.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be a little concerned if Billy was your favorite character in this movie because he has some issues.
But the thing about it is that he's the charming dickhead, isn't he?
He really is, but he's kind of a psychopath. I mean, let's be honest.
He's psycho.
Like, whereas Doc, you're like, most of the scenes with between Doc and Billy, you're like, yeah, I if I was in this situation, I would be Doc, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep,
absolutely. And I think you just sort of like. Like you said, when you watch it, then you think, God, this is brilliant. It's
speaking to me, man.
And then then you watch it, and you do see. I mean, I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I still absolutely adore this movie.
Me too.
But I can see the little things that are like, oh God, I can see why people really hated this movie when they came out.
Yeah, there are some great moments, but there are some
amazing moments.
Other moments,
and weirdly there's a lot of anachronisms, but there are also some things in this movie that are closer to history than something like Chisholm or Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. The other movies that sort of roughly cover these movies. Weirdly, Chisholm doesn't even appear in this movie. This
no.
Movie. I think he appears in number 2. I think.
Possibly. It's been a while since I'd seen either of these, to be honest. But I'm sure I've watched Young Guns 2 more than one. Actually.
Same here, I think.
But
probably not like design, but
no. I think I saw this on. I'm gonna say it was like a late night Channel 4 kind of deal. That's probably where I first saw it. Where I saw a lot of these movies that we end up covering. It's like, I'm pretty sure it was like late at night on a weeknight or something, and it was on TV. But yeah, let's get into it, shall we? With maybe the most awesome 80s TV show opening to a film I've ever seen. It's like bizarre.
That's the thing about the double sort of, the double edge of this. It's like, it's so cool. It's so cool. It's so cool. And yet also very naff.
Also extremely naff. It's like, imagine if what they do at the end of Predator in the credits where they turn around and smile, imagine that at the opening of the film. That's basically what we've got here.
It's black and white sort of negative background.
It's like a music video.
Them walking towards the screen sort of thing, and then you get the sort of, it goes along the cast, doesn't it? And it's like, that's so cool, but
it's
really
it's half 80s TV intro and half MTV music video. It's just amazing. It's like it's all at once naff and simultaneously fantastic.
Yeah, and weirdly, I think the music video thing gets worse in the second one because Bon Jovi did the music, didn't he? And it was like,
I think the second one's even called "Blaze of Glory." I think
it is.
I think it is. Yeah. In fact, I think maybe the song was written for the movie. I'm not sure.
What happened with the second one was they wanted to use "Dead or Alive" on the soundtrack.
Oh, okay.
And Bon Jovi said, "No, you can't have that because it wouldn't fit. But I will write you a whole, set of songs for it." So they went, "Yeah, fuck yeah, go on then." So that's basically what they did for the second one.
Ah, that makes sense. I love Blaze of Glory anyway. It's a good song. So
yeah, it's a great song.
Happy days. So we open in town with Doc and Tunstall.
Yeah.
And Tunstall's going to take him for a drink, I think, isn't he? He's going to take Doc for a drink.
See, this is one of those anachronism moments that I love because obviously I didn't know this at the time.
Yeah.
You look at the Lincoln County War later. So Doc, who's Kiefer Sutherland, and Turlock, who is Terence Stamp.
Yeah.
So Tunstall says to him, we'll go in. They finish their work, and he says, "We'll go for a dram and a root beer sort of thing."
Mm-hmm.
And Doc says to him, "Oh, who gets the dram?" And Tunstall says, "Oh, that's a matter of seniority," sort of thing. And the funniest thing is, in real life, Tunstall, who is almost always in movies played by an older gentleman, was only 24.
Mm-hmm.
And Doc was in his 30s.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, really, he should get the dram then, because he's like 10 years older than you, but never mind.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was an intentional kind of jab in the films, I don't know if they particularly planned that, but it's funny the way it turned out.
Yeah. One of my favourite things about Doc Scurlock was in real life is he had no front teeth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because there was I think it was over a card game, there was an altercation, and he got shot in the mouth.
Jesus Christ.
The bullet went through his teeth and out the back of his neck.
My God.
Doing no other damage other than taking his teeth out, basically.
That's pretty lucky and simultaneously horrible.
Yeah. So I love that. I love those little bits, little stories like that.
Yeah. They're kind of walking along, and then they see Billy getting chased down by Murphy's men.
Yep.
And obviously Tunstall feels sorry for this kid, and like he has with many other wayward strays, as we'll learn soon, decides to take him in. He kind of picks him up. He says, like, "Come with us, let's leave."
Get in the wagon, isn't it, sort of thing?
Yeah, and obviously Billy's not going to complain in that moment. He's in for a hanging, so
Yeah.
And then so he takes them back to their home, where we're introduced pretty much to the rest of the Regulators, with Charlie Sheen as Dick Brewer.
Yep.
Basically splitting up a fight between Jose and Dirty Steve, isn't he?
Yeah.
And it's pretty clear for early on. Jose gets some serious shit from all of these guys, like on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And
Chavez.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it Chavez?
Chavez. Lou Diamond Phillips' character.
Yeah. Sorry. And then obviously they one by one meet Billy, and they're all kind of commenting that he's clearly not there. Really, he's not all there. And then of course Charles, sort of almost jokingly, he's like, "Oh, you're not one of us, and what did you do? You rob some people or kill someone?" And of course Billy looks up, and you can see that Charlie's a bit concerned. He's like, "Oh shit, like you actually killed someone, like fuck."
He's immediately intimidated, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's like, because they've clearly all done, a bit of thievery probably, and a bit of horse rustling, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Horse rustling will get you in a lot of towns is worse than killing someone.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's a financial thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess cattle are worth more than people in some circumstances, depending on the person.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then obviously they get to know Billy a little more over lunch, and we kind of see that Tunstall's this real sort of gentlemanly father figure to all of these kids, and he won't really have them misbehave as Dirty Steve is kind of mocking. I think it's Charlie and Dirty Steve are mocking Billy, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then they say, "Oh no, we were just hacking on you. We were just hacking on you." And then Charlie's like, How did you kill a guy? Why did you kill a guy? And they was like, I killed him because he was hacking on me. And they both just like, oh, shit. And then
Tunstall tells them to apologise and that they're doing the dishes on their own.
That's right. Yeah, they're on dish duty now, on their own. And then later we get a scene where Tunstall's basically teaching the group to read, and to the shock of everyone, Billy reads absolutely fluently. Whereas everyone else obviously is struggling. But yeah, it's Tunstall's clearly portrayed as a very, very nice man in this movie. And then I think we cut to like the next day or so, or maybe sometime after, where Billy's kind of considering killing the pig, but then kind of pulls the gun on it, and he's gonna shoot it, but then obviously Murphy's men approach, so he dives in with the pig to hide. Yeah. So the sheriff's there, and Tunstall's accused of having stolen from Murphy.
And again, what I love is like you get they come over the thing, and it's like immediately you know who the bad guy is.
Yeah.
It's I mean, there's a reason you choose Jack Palance for your your villain. You want it known who the villain is. You choose Jack Palance.
I mean, Jack Palance is one of the all-time villains. You're absolutely right. But it's interesting though, because this could have gone either way at the start, to be honest, because both are massive villains in a lot of films. So Well,
yes, but I think the difference is that Terence Stamp was, though he played for a few villains,
he did.
He was a much bigger heartthrob. He was in the 60s, he was a huge heartthrob. So He didn't quite have the reputation as the bad guy that Palance, kind of had.
Yeah. So Mr. Tunstall basically points out to the sheriff, he's like, look, you're going to keep hearing that I've stolen from Murphy because Murphy hates me. We're both in the same business. They both got beef outfits, haven't they, effectively? Yeah. And they're rivals, and it's clear that Murphy is like a ruthless rival and just wants He just wants Tunstall gone, basically.
Yeah, and Murphy says that he's part of the Santa Fe Ring, which at the time was basically what controlled it. Because it wasn't a state yet, it was a territory.
Yeah.
And basically it was controlled by a load of incredibly rich people who ruthlessly, did very bad things to push out poor farmers.
Yeah.
And, and a lot of the Mexican population that were living there. They were, they did, and Billy actually was kind of seen as a hero from the Mexican population because he spent a lot of time with them. He grew up in that area, and he spoke fluent Spanish, and he lived with them. Mm-hmm. So that Tunstall was an English guy that came over and wanted to start this. He was part of his family was merchants, I think they were, and he didn't want that. He didn't want to do that, so he moved to New Mexico to have a cattle sort of thing. And of course, he fell foul of the very Irish house, which is what they call them, and the house basically ran everything. And Tunstall, along with McSwearn, who we see later, played by Terry O'Quinn, and in real life, Chisholm, they kind of banded together, and they were the ones that were they trying to start a new outfit. But of course, that's what sparked the war. So as it says, Murphy was backed by the Santa Fe Ring, so he was where the money was.
Yes, yeah. And then I'm not sure if this is just like. The passage of time might not be terribly clear here, but I've always found it kind of awkward where we go from this moment with Murphy being clear that he fucking hates hates Tunstall. To then immediately after we get a scene where one of Murphy's men comes along, Jay McCloskey, and McCloskey's like, "Hey, I want to join your group," and Tunstall's like, "Okay." It's like, you sure? You sure that's a good idea? Because I
mean, I suppose it's supposed to.
I think time is meant to have passed, and a little, and it's
time is definitely passed. By how much I'm not sure. It wouldn't have been very much because
Billy's getting his clothes in the next shot, so it can't have been like a huge amount of time.
I don't think they were actually together for that long anyway. It was only a matter of months. I think the whole thing happened. And I think the main thing it's supposed to show is that Tunstall is
a lovely man.
Is willing to give anybody a go, even
his rivals.
He kind of sees the good in the kid and thinks, well, I'm willing to give him a chance.
Yeah.
None of the other guys are. They all like,
oh, hell no. And then later we see Billy getting some new clothes, courtesy of Mr. Tunstall again. And then you get Chavez's knife throwing interrupted by Billy just shooting the crap out of the bucket.
And it's things like that really show that Billy is a nutter.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's laughing like maniacally on top of the roof, and everyone's like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, we've all got guns. Like, we just,
I will say that Estefez does an amazing job of playing.
He's fantastic. His performance is great.
Charming douchebag.
Yeah,
he's played similar characters, in other movies, but I think this is him like let loose. It's like he's thoroughly enjoying himself in this role.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just having the time of his life by the seam of it.
Yeah.
So Mr. Tunstall kind of comes out and he's kind of angry. But then he's just like, I won't even start this fight. And he's like, let's just go dance. Because it's New Year. So they all head off to the New Year's dance, where we're introduced to Alec McSween, who's a lawyer, and Tunstall's talking to him about Murphy's actions. But Alex basically tells Tunstall, anyone would be, everyone thinks he's crazy for even representing Tunstall.
Yeah.
And of course, while this is going on, we see Doc first lays eyes on Jensen.
Yeah.
And is like immediately lusting after her. So he approaches Jensen, who's with Murphy, sat with Murphy, and he asks if she can dance. And Murphy says, yeah, of course, no problem. And then, of course, he learns that Murphy is her, quote, guardian, as she calls it. And we see.
I love it. He gives that terrible poetry.
Oh God, yeah, he's like, I'm a poet, don't you know?
She barely speaks English.
I know.
And you're writing poetry at the poor girl,
and it's awful poetry as well.
You're not gonna win. I mean, it's like you'd have trouble winning over a normal girl, like a normal American girl with such bad poetry. But some poor Chinese girl who barely understands what you're saying.
Yeah, she just looks really confused. Unfortunately, it doesn't last long because Murphy splits them up, and he says, "Oh, I just realized who you are. You're with the regulators. You can fuck right off, mate." And then, of course, Alex joins Doc, who basically says, "Oh, yeah. Guardian's a very kind word for it." It turns out that Murphy had his shirt ruined by her family's laundrette, and basically he took Jensen as payment. And she's now, quote, the house entertainment.
Yeah.
Billy briefly meets...
Again, really, really rubbing in that he's a bad guy.
Oh, God. He could not be more evil in this movie. In fact, I'm pretty sure, throughout the movie, he just calls her China. He doesn't even know her name. In the end, he's just shouting China, I think, at her.
I think there's one...
Oh no! Actually, he says Jensen. He does say Jensen when they're in the house a couple of times. Yeah, but later on, he's just shouting China at her. It's like, Jesus Christ, man! Could you be any more of an asshole?
Well, I think he means China doll, doesn't he?
Maybe China doll is what he was getting at. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, that's just me being generous.
Maybe we're being too generous. Billy briefly meets Pat Garrett here at the dance, who is very dismissive of him, and basically says, "Hey, me and my girl are going up to request a song for the band, so bye."
Yeah, and I do like the. I mean, it's a very knowing line, but it's like, he says, "One day I'm going to be bigger than Pat Garrett," and you think,
yeah.
Yes, of course.
yeah. That's pretty much his goal in life.
In the time, Pat Garrett was he was a very known name, and obviously Billy hasn't made his name yet. But Billy's name wasn't made until well after his supposed death. Whether you believe the Bushy Bill story or not. So at this point, Pat Garrett's everybody knows who Pat Garrett is.
Yeah. Then Murphy tells one of his lackeys to just go and be an asshole to Tunstall and start a fight. It's McCloskey that intervenes, isn't it? I think, or is it Charlie? Actually, it might be Charlie that intervenes.
I think it's Charlie.
Because he says the guy comes up, he's like, "You and me," and he's like, "No, you and I," and he looks back at Tunstall like, "See, I've learned. Look what I've learned."
Charlie says when Charlie is introducing himself when Billy first meets him, he says he's a pugilist.
Yes, he does.
And Billy's like, I have no idea what that is. The hell's a pugilist? And that's when we get the Charlie later at this point when Charlie sort of gets in, and that guy's like, he's like correcting his grammar. And he looks to Tunstall and says, "Is that right?" And that's correct.
Correct. And then he basically wipes the floor with the guy.
Yeah, he beat the shit out of him, doesn't he? And is it Doc that says pugilist?
Yeah, I think it is Doc that says pugilist. Yeah. And then New Year's happens, and presumably everyone dies from all of those bullets falling back down to Earth. There's a lot of bullets in the air. Yeah. Yes. And then, presumably the following morning, early in the morning, the regulators are heading back in pretty high spirits and probably quite drunk. And I'm never quite sure. I always kind of got the feeling that Tunstall knew what was about to happen, and he kind of sends the guys off. It's unclear to me. I'm not quite sure.
It sort of feels like that, doesn't it?
I don't know how he'd know, but he just kind of does. I don't know. It's weird. But they see some pheasants, I think, and he's like, "Yeah, go for it. Go get the pheasants." And he sends Billy off too. And then Murphy's gang basically turn up behind him, and
that's a great shot.
It's a wonderful shot.
The shot of him in the carriage, and the Murphy's men coming over the hill is a really great shot.
Yeah, it's really good. And they shoot him dead.
They completely gun him down.
Of course, Billy is like all for trying to go for a fight, but Doc is like, there are way too many of them. We need to leave. And they all heed that advice and retreat. So Dick then holds a funeral for Tunstall. And then I think then later Alex talks to Justice Wilson. And Justice Wilson's like, no one is crazy enough to go up against Murphy. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, and
it's Alex, I think. I've got his first name in my notes, but yes.
McSween says, they are, and he looks over to all these.
They do look like nutters. They're just stood there like, yep.
But they also look. They've never looked more than like kids at that particular moment. They look like a bunch of kids.
They do, yeah. They really do.
Kicking dirt and stuff. And he says, "What, them?" It's like, they're boys. There's no way they're gonna go. And he says, "Will you tell them that?"
Yeah.
And the next thing you see is they're in like a barn, and he's swearing them in as deputy.
Yeah. So they're deputized to basically bring Tunstall's killers to justice. So they ride out, and I think first they find Henry Hill in like a bar. I think it's a bar.
Yeah. And they make a crack about Doc's upbringing. So Doc, he's just saying about Doc was brought up in a place like this. Is like, but I've bettered myself now, sort of thing. Yeah.
Dick basically goads Billy into going in and sorting it out. He's like, "Hey, Billy,
this is one of those things. Well, about Dick's character is he keeps like ragging on Billy and saying, you know, stop doing this, stop doing that, and act better, sort of thing. And then every time something like the shit hits the fan,
he relies on Billy. Yeah,
exactly. He's the first one to go on, Billy, you go. Go on. You're ready to go. You go. It's like, you're an asshole, aren't you?
Yeah, he really is. He really is an asshole. And he basically, there's a whole group of them, but he's like, no, Billy, you go in by yourself, read the guy's rights, and we'll take him in. And bring him back out, and we'll take him in. And so Billy heads in. He heads in long enough to basically identify Henry, and then also identify the fact that Henry's about to go to the toilet. And he basically heads around to the outhouse, pretending to go to the toilet himself.
Yeah, and they all see him come out and it's like, what the hell is he doing?
What's he doing? Yeah.
Where's he going?
And basically he shoots the guy dead and then says, oh, by the way, you're under arrest.
Well, I love the fact that he shoots him through the fly of his trousers.
Yeah. It's just so unnecessary, but brilliant. Yeah.
And again, just shows how fucking nuts Billy is.
Yeah, absolutely.
He puts the warrant in his mouth, doesn't he?
He puts the warrant in his mouth after he's dead. And he's like, by the way, you're under arrest. And then a gunfight ensues. I think 9 guys get killed in total in the end of this gunfight.
I love all the guys come out and they start shooting at Billy. Billy jumps through the window of the outhouse.
Yeah.
And basically lands in the river of piss.
And he literally says, oh shit, when he falls in it as well. So I think 9 people get killed, and then And
they were supposed to have had warrants to arrest them.
Yeah, Dick chastises Billy afterwards. He's like, "We have warrants. We're meant to be the law, for fuck's sake." Like, you know.
Yeah. And again, you just go, yeah, but you know what he's like. You sent him in.
Yeah, they say that like the following day, don't they? They're reading the paper, and it's like, well, you goaded him into it. And he did it. So what did you expect?
And they've actually got the description wrong, haven't they? They've given the description of Dick.
And they've made out they've said that Billy's the ringleader, basically. Yeah. And I think they say that he single-handedly killed all 9 as well.
Something like that, yeah.
And then Doc sees Yun and decides he's going to go talk to her, regardless of the danger that they're clearly in right now.
That's him, Doc's so lovelorn, isn't he?
He is.
He so desperately wants to be the romantic poet.
He does, and he tries to give her flowers, and then when she rejects it, he basically says, "Well, you tell Murphy that the regulators are going to clean house, and he can't. We're not." Does he say something awful? Something kind of off where he's like, "Oh, you can't pay us off like some cheap laundrette or something like that." It's like, "Oh, dude, that's not going to do you any favors now, is it?"
Yeah.
And then he's apologizing to her, but then the Murphy's men turn up, and he's like, "Oh shit!" And he kind of dives out of the way as they come through town.
I mean, how they didn't fucking see him.
I know. It's a great shot, though. It's quite funny.
Yeah.
Because I kind of, the first time I saw it, I kind of assumed there was going to be a gunfight at that point, but they don't see him somehow. He just avoids them. I don't know how. You'd think at that point running would make you even more obvious than if you just walked away slowly, because like you're banged to rights, but somehow he gets away with it.
Yeah.
So later, 2 of Murphy's goons are caught by the regulators. The guy finds some shit, and he's like, "Shit!" He's like, "No, I found some shit." And I think Chavez comes up behind him with the knife, doesn't he? And Dick says, basically, "You're going to jail," and Billy's like, "They're going to the grave." And McCloskey, seemingly trying to calm the situation, is like, "Right, guys, look. Yeah, we can't go where we're planning because there's bound to be an ambush. We should go through to Lincoln. If we go through to Lincoln, we can take them there, and they can face the law there." And Billy just kind of has a moment, doesn't he? He's just decided he sees something in McCloskey's face, and he's like, I saw that. I saw that. I saw that. And basically says, like, "Where's the ambush, McCloskey? You're planning an ambush," because obviously he used to be a member of Murphy's gang. And Dick basically tells him to apologize, and McCloskey kind of extends his hand, and Billy says sorry, but then he's basically like, "I'm sorry for not outing you sooner." And just blows his head off. And then, of course, the goons are also killed as they try to flee, and then, it's just, again, a complete clusterfuck.
Yep. and the group are sort of kind of they don't know who was right, whether the kid was actually a traitor or whether he was not and was actually with them.
Yeah, because Dick says that Billy was out of line, but Doc's like, no, actually, he was kind of acting strange. Like maybe he was right. And obviously they all decide to head off. With Dick giving Billy another stern warning. And Doc's quite shook up here, isn't he? Because he ends up with the guy's blood. He ends up with McCloskey's blood all over his face, doesn't he?
Spurted all over him, and he was completely
just shell shocked and just like Jesus Christ.
And I think this is that I think is a good. It's one of those sort of things that shows you that these are still supposedly kids and they're actually not used to killing people.
No.
And it's only because Billy's a nutter that...
Yeah, exactly. Well, Billy has killed before, of course. These guys might have just killed for the first time in the last couple of, days. So I guess it's new to most of them. So then the next day or later, I guess it must be the next day or next couple of days, Billy's got all the credit in the paper. It's all about Billy the Kid, but it's got Dick's face in the drawing.
Yeah, that's what it's got.
And they realize that John Kinney has been basically an ex-military turned mercenary, has been hired to bring Billy down.
Yeah, so they've basically got people from almost every direction coming after them.
Yeah, and this only gets worse as time goes on. So they're coming from every direction, and they keep coming in greater quantities from this point onwards. They're kind of screwed at this point.
Yeah.
So Doc and Dick talk, and Dick says, look, I don't know where the fuck we can go. There's trouble in all directions. And then Chavez says, well, my people go to the spirit world to try and find their way. So maybe we should get fucking high.
He finds some little peyotes, doesn't he? And he basically mixes them up a little brew. Yeah. Which apparently was mushroom soup.
Yeah. And they all get like high out of their faces. And they head through like Native American territory.
I do love the the different reactions to it. It's like you've got is it Dirty Steve who's basically hallucinating giant chickens?
Yep.
And just like shooting his shotgun.
He's lucky he didn't take his feet out, to be honest.
He's lucky he didn't kill any of them. He managed to sort of not hit anybody and himself, I think Charlie's the only one who doesn't take, doesn't he? Charlie
I think
just
so.
Because he calls them basically heathens.
Yeah.
Not Charlie. Charlie Sheen's character.
Dick. Sorry, Dick. Yeah.
Dick's the only one that doesn't take it. So you've got Dirty Steve who's hallucinating chickens. You've got Chavez who looks like he's like communing with his ancestors.
Yeah.
You've got Billy who's twirling his gun around and
he just falls over, doesn't he, in the end?
Yeah, he while he's spinning his gun, it flies off and he can't find it.
Yeah.
And you've got Doc reciting poetry about butterflies.
Yeah.
She's my butterfly. Wow, I'm her butterfly. It's I can't remember what Charlie's doing. What's Charlie doing?
I can't remember myself. I think he might just be looking completely out of it. I'm not entirely sure.
He's puking, isn't he?
Oh, that's right.
He's just there puking.
Yeah. And then you got that scene where they're riding through all of the Native Americans, and they're like, "Why aren't they killing us?" And then one of them's like, "It's because we're invisible. We're in the spirit world. They can't see us." And these people are just looking at them like, "The fuck is wrong with you?"
Yeah. I mean, these are clearly like people that have Chavez says about his people and is it later he tells them about his it's later.
It's later. It's later.
But he's got like at this point he's got like a skull face.
He's painted his face and everything.
Riding ahead of them.
Yeah.
And of course, like I don't think any of the Indians want anything to do with them, so they're just leave them to it.
Yeah, it's probably just quite a peaceful village. Just like leave us, leave us alone. Just please ride through and leave. Yeah, so then what happens? I'm just trying to
I think this is where Buckshot Roberts turns up.
It is, isn't it? Yes, you're right. So yeah, they realize that they're holed up in a small building, and Buckshot they see Buckshot approaching, don't they? I think it's Dirty Steve sees him and runs down to tell the rest who are inside. And Billy and Dick are arguing because Dick wanted to say grace, and Billy's like, the food's getting cold. And Dick says to Billy, like, after this food, we're going to have some words about who's going to be leading the regulators and get this sorted out. But they head out to confront Buckshot.
I know, is it Buckshot? He says Buckshot's killed more people than cholera or something.
Yeah, and Billy loves that. He's like, let's go see him. Like, I can't wait. He's like, I can't wait. It's just all a big game to Billy. And they head out, and Dick tells him, like, there's a warrant for your arrest. And Buckshot's like, I don't care. Like, I'm here for the bounties, because the bounty's on your head, or on Billy's head. It's like it's quite a lot, isn't it? It's like $200 or something crazy like that.
So. Yeah.
Which is a lot of money.
That's a shitload of money in 1870.
Yeah, and then I think he says like the rest of them are worth 100 each or something. And he basically is like, let's get on with it, and just start shooting at them. Again, Dick.
I mean, this whole fight is like weird because he basically hides in an outhouse and just shoots at them through the outhouse. And you think, well, it's just an outhouse, so all they had to do was just fire into it and he'd be dead. But
and also when they meet him out in the open, he's like, let's get on with it. It's like there's one of you and 5 of them pointing guns at you. Like, he'd be dead it's kind of a weirdly directed scene. I don't quite understand what they were trying to do here.
No, I mean they were obviously trying to set Buckshot is as he was in real life, a real badass.
Oh yeah.
But you do sort of think, that wasn't a terribly well done scene, that one.
No, it kind of comes across like Buckshot's more lucky than anything, or like he only like the regulators are stupid.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the point. Maybe it's to show that they don't really have that much in the way of skills when it comes to like tactics and things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Dick almost gets Billy killed again. He tells Billy, go get him. He's in the outhouse. Go get him.
Again, he does the same thing again. He says, go get him, wind him up, send him off.
But this time Billy's like, fuck that, because he starts walking again, like the gunfire comes his way. He's like, oh shit. And then they all shoot at the outhouse, and I think Buckshot makes a noise like it sounds like he's dead, basically, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And then Dick heads towards the house and is fatally shot. He gets a shotgun put through one of the holes in the outhouse and shoots Dick fatally. I think some of the others get injured because Doc gets his hand or his arm.
Doc's hand gets shot, I think it is. Is it Chavez gets shot in the leg?
Yes, I think so. So they all obviously retreat. Because also I think they're like, we need to take him out. I think Billy's like, we need to take him out. And Doc's like, there's going to be way more on the way just behind him. We need to go. Just go. So they kind of regroup and discuss how to proceed, with Doc saying, like, I'm going to go right to Dick's mother, and I also need to fix my arm.
Yeah.
I think the others aren't quite sure that Doc's going to come back, but Billy's like, no, he'll come back. He'll be fine.
Yeah, and Doc is, he didn't plan to.
No, there's a great scene. There's a great scene in a bit when he's like, I love that scene, and we'll get to it in a moment. But and then Billy's like talking about killing Sheriff Brady, and Chavez is like, you're insane. We need to go west and escape. And
we need to head further west. Go with my people. My people are heading west. We should go there.
Yeah. And of course, Billy's like, we're your people. We need to stick together.
Yeah. And is this the word Chavez says about it? Because he calls him a coward, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. I can't remember if this is in a little bit or not, because I really love that scene. I actually think it's a really good scene.
Yeah. And he's I can't remember if it's this one or a bit later when he's talking about.
I think it's a little later.
Right.
I think. No. My notes say it is now. So he's talking. Yeah, because that's right. Because Chavez says they need to go west, and Billy says, well, west is the opposite direction to where the sheriff is. And Chavez is like, yeah, exactly. We need to go with my people. We need to escape. We need to live. I'm the only one of my I'm the only person of my tribe left, of my family left. I need to go west. And that's what my spirit the spirit guide told him when they were having the hallucinations. So I don't know what you saw.
I don't know what you saw, but
a spirit vision, that was it.
Yeah, my spirits told me to go west.
Yeah, and Billy's like, you know, you don't understand what Murphy's gang has done to us, to me. Like, he's taken Tunstall from me, and then we get this great, I think is a great bit of acting by Lou Diamond Phillips, who's like, he killed my entire people. Like, all of my family are dead because of because of men like him.
Yeah.
But he's like, you know, I think, didn't they give him like poisoned meat or like rotten meat, and then when they tried to get it back, they were all shot.
They gave them that they were supposed to give they were put on the reservation. They were supposed to get meat, and they didn't. They gave them rotting meat, and when some of them went, including him, went to get supplies, they basically came back and they were all dead. And when they basically complained, they all got shot, and he was the only survivor.
Yeah, and then I think when he left, when he got back to his people, then he realized that while he was there, they'd sent people to kill everyone in the village as well, so the whole village got wiped out. So I think he's literally the only surviving person from his village, and his family's got nothing. And Billy argues, look, you know, we need to stick together. We're family now. We're pals. And that's kind of the ongoing thing, is the pals thing, isn't it, throughout the movie from this point on. And then, meanwhile, Doc sneaks into town to see Yun. He sneaks in to see her.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things that Billy seems to do. Billy whenever they're all about to like go their separate ways,
kind of cons them into continuing.
He manages to persuade them to stick with it. He's very good at just saying the right words to make them, you know, second guess themselves and not. Yeah,
he's quite manipulative. He gets what he wants. So Yun says, like, oh, you know, I've heard about you, Doc. Like, you want to have your way with me and then cut me up into little pieces and eat me. And he's like, what? I like eating, like, doesn't he say, like, I like eating meat and potatoes or something?
Yeah.
And he says, look, you know, it's Murphy who kills people, not me. And he asks her to run away with him. He's like, we can get like the midnight train to New York or whatever and just escape. And Yun does confess that she keeps him in her heart.
Yeah.
And then I love this.
She kept the flowers, didn't she?
Yes, that's right. Earlier. Yeah, she kept them in secret, didn't she? And I love this shot, this scene, because we get this great moment where we get Billy and Co sat around the fire discussing if Doc's going to make a run for it, and Billy's like, no, he wouldn't. Doc wouldn't run. Doc really likes me. And then it cuts back to Doc basically telling Yun that Billy's a fucking idiot and that they're going to end up dead if he stays with him. He tells Doc says to Yun, you know, like, Tunstall taught me that regardless of what's happened in your life before, you can turn it around and start a new life, and I want to start a new life with you. But of course that's disrupted by Murphy knocking at the door.
Yeah.
And I guess Doc like escapes through the window, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And returns to the regulators, who are none the wiser. So they had no idea that he was going to run away. They just assumed he came back.
Did we come back?
Yeah. So Billy gets his own way and is like even more arrogant at this point. He's skipping down the road behind the sheriff as they take out the sheriff's group in pretty brutal fashion, with Billy telling him, reap the whirlwind, sheriff.
Yeah.
And then later Alex meets with them and he tells Billy, like, you have gone too far now. Killing the sheriff was too far. They've drafted the fucking army. You're screwed.
Yeah, the army's coming now.
You're no longer deputized. You're fucked.
Yeah. So they all leave their badges.
They do, and Billy offers to help Alex, and Alex is like, "You are a death sentence now."
Yeah. Like, I do not want your help.
Yeah. And Doc even asks Alex if he can help with Yun, but Alex is like, "Look, my career is ruined. Like, no one." I think he says, I've got no ground to stand on anymore. He's like, I'm screwed. And Doc sincerely thanks him for all of his help. And they part ways. So yeah, then I guess later that day or the next day, Doc's seen the papers and discusses with the group about them being hung, which is the plan for them now. Yeah. And Billy jokes about it, but Charlie is like clearly really distressed. So is Dirty Steve. Actually, Dirty Steve's like horrified. They're kids. They're kids, and now they're facing like potential hanging.
I love it. I can't remember which one it is. It says it, whether it's Charlie or Dirty Steve.
Do you know Charlie and Dirty Steve were kind of interchangeable at times in this movie?
I know.
Apart from Charlie getting married, I guess.
One of them says, "Oh, when they hang you, you mess your trousers
in front of women and everything,
of girls and everything."
But that's such a juvenile thing to think, but they are kids, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of works. Yeah. It's like, it's kind of the sort of thing that a kid might worry about. So yeah, it kind of works. So, they're upset, but Billy, Doc even has a go at Billy and he says, look, I don't think they want to hear that they're going to be hanged. And Billy says, no, you are going to be hanged if we slip up or if you give up. We need to keep going because otherwise you will be hanged. And he's got a point here, to be honest. As much of a jackass as he is, they can't turn back now, so they've got to keep doing what they're doing. Exactly. They're screwed. I guess the argument is they just want to run away, whereas he wants to continue fighting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then Charlie basically says, I've got to go and do something. And the regulators follow with him. And it turns out, I'm assuming that Charlie is a virgin. And basically wants to lose his virginity. That's what I got from this scene, but I'm not sure.
Right, so there is a longer scene here that's been kept. So Charlie wants to go to the whorehouse.
Yeah.
So the woman, he goes and he talks to the woman. In the longer scene, it turns out that it's his mother.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he just wants her to hold him. And she doesn't know who the fuck he is.
No, I know. And I love that moment when he's like, I just want to hug you. And she's like, it all costs the same, mate. Like, you're still paying.
Yeah, apparently, I always presumed it was the same thing. It's like he was a virgin and he just wanted to get his end away sort of thing. But no, apparently in the longer scene, it's his mother.
Oh, but she doesn't. So he knows and she doesn't. Is that the idea?
Yes.
Oh, that's actually a way more touching scene than I thought it was.
They should have kept that.
That would have been quite a good scene. But yeah, so they meanwhile in the bar, Billy overhears Joe Grant bragging about planning to kill Billy the Kid.
Yeah.
And by the way, Joe Grant, just saying that name is just weird to me. But
Joe Grant.
I know I can't. Whenever I read Joe Grant, I'm like Doctor Who.
But just call him the Texan.
Yeah, the Texan. So he approaches and he's like, "Whoa, you're going to kill Billy the Kid? I'd love to hold the gun of the man who's going to kill Billy the Kid." And of course, the guy gives him the gun, and he steals the rounds as he's kind of looking at it. And then Joe's like, if you see Billy he gives the gun back to him. He's like, if you see someone matching Billy the Kid's description, he tells him he's really handsome and stuff. And of course, the whole time Billy's looking back at Doc and the rest of them.
And they look like they're like, fuck. Like, oh, for fuck's sake, what is he doing now?
Yeah. But it's great. Like he's got to that point now where he's so arrogant and cocky. He's just like, he thinks he's invincible now. He's like, I am, untouchable. But yeah, Joe says, if you see someone matching his description, you shout to me. And of course he looks in the mirror and he's like, I can see him. There he is. He's like pointing at himself in the mirror. And then he starts whistling, doesn't he? Because he said like something about he heard him from whistle.
He has a tendency to whistle sad ballads or something like that, doesn't he?
Yeah. And of course, obviously, he finally the penny drops. But there's no bullets in his gun. So Joe can't kill him. And of course, Billy shoots him.
And again, that fucking laugh of his.
Yeah. But then, of course, that's all broken up because Charlie bursts in and says, like, John Kelly's on his way. We need to leave. So they flee across the plains, don't they? They end up like.
Is it at that point that Charlie gets married, or is it later?
No. It's later. So Charlie bursts in at this point, and he's basically like, "We need to go. John Kelly's on his way," and they kind of evade them in the riverbed in the tall grass.
Yep.
And then I think, so then now there's a whole fucking.
this is one of those weird things. After they kill the Texan, they do that. When they're like riding along, there's that tune. It's a fucking weird tune.
Yes, it is really weird, isn't it? Yeah.
It's like this. What is? I mean, because we were talking about the soundtrack before we started, and we were saying the soundtrack to this movie sort of works sometimes.
Yeah.
And other times it's like, God, this is really badly chosen.
As an 80s tune, I absolutely love that theme, but it doesn't fit the movie at all. It's like, this is wrong. I have previously said in previous reviews of Westerns, I think, what was that movie I watched? The Western I watched recently that really, the soundtrack really annoyed me because I hate contemporary music. I can't think what it was.
Was it?
That was it, I think, yeah. And there were, I enjoyed, quite a lot of that movie, but the soundtrack was like, oh geez. I hate contemporary music in period settings. It really annoys me.
Yeah. See, the thing is that sometimes it weirdly works. Because there's things like Marie Antoinette. It sort of works in that movie, which it really shouldn't, but it does. And I think it works in Plunkett and McLean as well.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, that's like. That's got like fucking techno tunes and all sorts of shit in that. But weirdly, it works for some reason in that movie. I'm not quite sure why.
Like you said, weirdly it works sometimes in this movie.
Yeah,
just not all
the
time.
There's sort of there are times where you get the tune and it'll have a sort of a twangy guitar that sounds just sort of country enough to sort of work, and then it sort of falls into like rock and goes the wrong way. It's like, oh no. Damn, you ruined it there.
Yeah, you almost have.
It's a really weird tune.
So, later there is now a whole goddamn publication on Billy the Kid, which Billy kind of boastfully reads from, and Doc's like, we need to talk about where we're heading because it looks like we're heading towards Lincoln. Which would be insane, Billy. But Billy's like, yeah, that's where we're going because we're going to go kill the rest of the men that killed Tunstall. And they're in Lincoln, so we're going there. And the group are like, there's like 100 men. That's insane. And Doc tells Billy, like, we cannot fight a war with 5 guys. And he basically says, look, I don't know about the rest of you. I'm going to Mexico. And the only reason, and we don't see it, but the only reason that Billy agrees to go to Mexico is because he thinks that they're going to have to kill a load of people to get to Mexico.
Yeah.
He's like, that'll be a great test. I'll do that. He's like, you should test yourself every day. And by test yourself, he means do something really stupid every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Really dangerous. So he agrees, Yeah.
What was he says? You got to test yourself every day, otherwise you get
soft or slow or die.
Slow, yeah.
So they head to Mexico. We don't actually see that journey.
We forgot a line when he's talking to the Texan.
Oh yeah.
There's a brilliant one, and he says to after he's killed the Texan, he says to Doc, "What does that make now? 30? Is it 25?" And Doc holds his hand up and goes, 5.
Oh yeah, that's right. He's like, "Call it 10."
We'll call it 10, yeah.
Yeah, tremendous. So they recuperate in Mexico, and we get that great bit where Billy's getting Doc to write a message to tell the authorities that he surrenders. And then he ends the letter with, "Actually, I've changed my mind. You can kiss my ass." It's like this big long letter of like, "Hey, if you meet me here, bring only 3 people. I'll be unarmed and I'll surrender to you." And then we get Chavez and Dirty Steve kind of make their peace, and we get Chavez says, like, there were many nights when I nearly slit your throat in your sleep. I'm glad I didn't. You're all right, And it's announced that Charlie's going to get married. Charlie's going to get married, and at the wedding, Pat Garrett catches up with Billy, and he says, "Look, I'm not here for you. I'm here to tell you that Alex is basically going to be assassinated tomorrow." And he thinks that, the regulators are the only people crazy enough to go in and try and escort him out to safety.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure how this goes, because I'm never quite sure how this scene ends, because basically Billy turns his back on Pat and he says, "Are you my friend?" And Pat says, "Yes, and he seemingly leaves, but then we hear a gunshot, and I'm not sure if Billy just killed him anyway.
No, he didn't. No,
he didn't. Okay, I wasn't sure.
He's in the second movie. He's played by a different actor, but it's
okay.
In this one, he's played by Patrick Wayne.
Yeah,
who is John Wayne's son.
Mm-hmm.
In the second one, he's played by for fuck's sake, played Grissom in
Batman.
CSI.
Oh, CSI. I was going to say it's Jack Palance played.
No.
It's like Jack Palance is like in both of these movies. Okay, I've not watched much CSI, so.
For fuck's sake, Manhunter.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know who you mean.
Is it William Peterson?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Yeah, he plays him in the second one, so it's a different actor.
Okay.
So yeah, he's not dead. He is in the second one.
I must admit, watching this one has made me want to rewatch the second one again because I haven't watched that for a while either.
Although it's like historically inaccurate, killing Pat Garrett at this point would be ridiculous.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
Pat Garrett kills Billy the Kid.
Yeah.
So yeah. Also, another thing in actual in real life, what happened when Charlie marries the Mexican girl? So does Doc. Doc marries the sister of this girl.
Okay.
So they both got married at this point.
Yeah. So of course Billy's like, time to go. But he has a moment where clearly he thinks he's probably gonna die. I don't know if Billy thinks I guess Billy thinks I think he thinks he's immortal, but other people might die. And he does have a moment where he's like, Charlie, you should stay. You're married. Yeah. You should stay.
Yeah, it's kind of the only really sympathetic thing that he does
in the whole movie. Yeah.
Yeah, he says to Charlie, you've got a wife now. You should think about your wife. You should stay.
And Doc obviously agrees, but Charlie is insistent. He says he's coming, and he says it ain't easy having pals. Yeah, so the regulators get to Alex and they tell him, we're here to rescue you. But Alex is like, I'm really sick. I cannot make the trip to Mexico. I'm going nowhere.
Yeah.
But it's too late anyway because the authorities surround the house.
Yeah, the army turns up.
I think first it's like local and then the army form in after, don't they?
Just the housemen first.
Yeah, isn't it the housemen overnight and then the army turn up in the morning?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So they've got no escape, and Charlie becomes kind of terrified as soon as he sees John Kelly out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's obviously this is just
they give Billy goes to give McSween a gun, and McSween says,
I love that. Yeah.
He says, My insurance policy won't pay out if I handle a weapon.
Yeah, he says being an active participant would negate my life insurance or something like that, doesn't he? It's like, that's brilliant. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, it's clear that obviously this was all just one big trap for them. So
and I think they won't storm the place because that. One of them says
they think there's like 40 men in there or something, don't they? Yeah.
In actual fact, in the real shootout that happens here, they did have 30 men with them, but they weren't all in the house. They were on other roofs and things like that. They were spread out a bit more.
Yeah.
There were a lot more men than just this little group.
Yeah. So they wait it out overnight, and then the following morning, the military turn up, and now they're in real trouble. So the army join the group outside, and they start setting up Gatling guns and God knows what, or at least one Gatling gun.
They set up a Gatler.
So they tell Alex sends out his wife, doesn't he?
No, that's is it. Don't they set the house on fire before he does
that? No, I think he sends the wife out because they all stop shooting and they're like, "Oh, yeah, wife's coming out," and she comes out and slaps the colonel.
Yeah.
And then they see Murphy turning up, don't they? They see Murphy turning up, and Murphy's like, "Burn the place down, just burn it down."
Yeah.
And then of course they're told to come out with their hands up, and Billy says, "Colonel Shithead, go to hell,"
Yeah.
and starts firing. everyone starts firing. Of course, Yunsun. Sorry, as soon as Murphy turns up, Yunsun escapes and enters the house and docks with her. He tells her to leave, but she refuses. Then now the house is on fire. And Dirty Steve is cursing Chavez because he's not there.
Yeah. Chavez is left. Chavez goes.
But of course, Dirty Steve's like, I always knew I couldn't trust him. He's a piece of shit. Always said he was a piece of shit.
And they're chucking out belongings, aren't they? To sort of help not make it worse. So I'm not quite sure why they're chucking stuff out.
No.
Or I think maybe at first they were chucking things out because to save them. I think
possibly, yeah.
So that maybe the McSwearns had stuff. I guess that assuming they survived.
Or at least his wife would have stuff because she's safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously then it turns out Chavez went to get the horses, and he turns up.
Well, there's that. I actually really like. I love that you see that chest come out of the window. There's a big chest.
Oh yeah.
And Billy's in it.
Yeah.
Billy comes out guns blazing.
Yeah.
And you do sort of, again, like the scene earlier on, you do sort of think that they're all there. There are. I'm not sure quite how many fucking men there are in front of them, but how they don't just get riddled with bullets, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the moment they set up the GAT is like, this is over. The whole house, and they do make a point of they're looking at all sides of the house. They are 100% surrounded. I don't even know how Chavez got the fuck out of there. Who knows? But yeah, Chavez comes back with the horses, and the gunfight proper basically starts.
Yeah.
Or it's like, this is an ongoing gunfight, but this is now the final stand,
Yeah.
And Charlie gets gunned down, but not before taking out John Kinney.
Yeah, they take each other out.
Yeah.
Which I believe is actually what happened in real life. I think.
Okay.
I think they did take each other out.
I'm not really up on my my Wild West history, so I'm kind of reliant on you because you're much more knowledgeable with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm not like an expert or anything, but I know I've read lots. I've read a few things on Tony War and stuff.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure they did take each other out in real life.
Oh, okay. Dirty Steve is just gunned the fuck down.
Yeah,
it's a horrible death. Doc and Yun escape. Billy gets shot quite a few times, but also manages to escape. As Alex kind of cheers them on briefly until he eats Gatling gun.
I know, it's like I'm not even sure you see the gun fire before that point.
No, it does. I don't think it does. It's like they set it up just to shoot him.
Just to take out him.
I know. They didn't use it on the house at all. They were like, no, just that one guy. Give him all of it. Like, Jesus.
Entire magazine.
So he gets blown away. And of course, the movie, we're led to believe the movie's about to end with Murphy cursing that Billy got away. But then, of course, at the other end of the street, we see Billy come back. For some reason, everyone stopped shooting. Yeah. Just long enough for him to, fine. And Billy makes like an insane shot with a pistol from fucking miles away.
Yeah.
And I think he hits like Murphy square in the head, done. And rides off.
Yeah.
And then of course we get the Kiefer Sutherland kind of voiceover.
That says what happened to them and how they escaped, and which some of it is true.
Right.
The stuff about Doc Surlock, like I said, didn't marry a Chinese woman. He married a Mexican, and he did go to New York. He outlived most of them.
Mm-hmm.
Chavez survived as well. He ended up in prison later, and he survived until he was quite old. Depending on whether you believe the story about Billy or not, whether he died by Pat Garrett or whether he didn't and was turned up later, I'm not sure I believe the Brushy Bill story, but you get that in the second one.
Yeah.
And I think the weird thing is in the second, when they do the second one, they changed a lot of stuff in that one because Sutherland didn't want to come back.
Oh, right.
So in that one, they basically said he'd only come back if Doc dies. So he dies in the second one, and he didn't in real life. So the second one's got even more changes in it.
They're still threatening a Young Guns 3.
It's on the docket. They've got it there. Apparently, so far, Lou Diamond Phillips, Estevez, and Sutherland, I think.
How's the fuck Sutherland going to come back?
I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, like I was thinking this. I was like, well, if he dies in the second one, then
yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Who knows? I kind of like it's going to be like a presumably how are they the Young Guns now? Like, come on.
Oh no, it's not. It's not Sutherland. It's Christian Slater.
Oh, okay, yep.
So Christian Slater, Arkansas Dave in the second one. So yeah, they've got an IMDb page for it.
Okay, well, that's
going to be directed by Emilio Estevez, apparently.
Right.
There's no other trivia other than that. You've even got a mock-up poster for it.
Oh wow! Okay.
So
we'll see. We'll see.
Anyway. There was a scene that I forgot to mention when they're in Mexico after the wedding. Doc sat reading.
Yeah.
And when they come and say, "Oh, it's time to go," he
leaves the book.
He closes his book. He checks his gun, rolls it along his leg, and then he places the book down. For some reason, I really like that scene. It's a really lovely.
It's a really nice scene. I kind of was like, is there? I don't know. It was a really lovely scene, but it's really odd in that it made me think like, what's the relevance of that book? Is there something important about that book? And
I just think it's just feels
a nice
like
scene.
Yeah, I think it feels like he's putting aside the civilized part of him. He's like, this is me putting.
He's making peace with what he's got to do, and
I need the gun now. I'll put the book down.
And I guess he's kind of accepting that he's probably going to his death now.
Yes,
so this is the end. Just accept it. But yeah, that was Young Guns, and to be honest, I had a blast watching it. I'm not going to lie, I had a real blast rewatching it.
I still think it's a good film.
If people could certainly pick this apart and argue why it's a terrible movie, and I can't disagree. But I had a blast watching it, and the nostalgic feels I get watching it makes me happy.
I've got a lot of love in my heart for this movie.
Some great performances for sure,
and that's it. I think that you can't argue with the performances. I mean, Emilio Estevez is Billy is brilliant.
He makes the movie. To be honest, I think his performance is fantastic.
And apparently he was really depressed making this movie because he'd just broken up with his girlfriend.
Oh wow!
You don't see that on screen, do you?
No, not at all. No, he comes across quite the opposite.
Yeah, and all the performances are all really good. They're all all the way along. So it's you can't fault the performances. You can fault some of the direction. You can certainly fault the soundtrack. The soundtrack does leave a lot to be desired at times.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
It works slightly better in the second one.
Yeah, I really need. I'm sure I've watched the second one more than the first, but it's been ages since I'd watched either. So I might go and watch the second one later, actually, if I get time.
We'll cover it later, maybe.
It's I'm sure we'll cover it at some point. But yeah, that was Young Guns, and next week we'll be back to our usual review fare. Don't know what the hell I'm going to watch, but we'll find something.
Yeah, I've got a couple things planned, I think.
Oh yeah, I was going to watch bloody Raccoon City, wasn't I? Maybe I'll do that this time for real. Maybe I will do it for real. But yes,
take a load of beers, you'll be fine.
Exactly, have a couple of beers and just put myself through it. The opening few minutes did nothing for me, but we'll see. Yes, but until then, stay safe, take care, and we'll catch you next time.